A nation divided racial unrest in the 1960s. The 1960s in America were a time of great turmoil. The civil rights movement was in full swing, fighting against segregation and discrimination. Black Americans were tired of being treated as second-class citizens. They demanded equality and justice. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. preached nonviolence, but anger and frustration were growing. The assassination of Dr. King in April 1968 sent shockwaves through the nation. It felt like a hammer blow to the heart of the movement. Cities erupted in riots. The deep divisions in American society were painfully clear. It was against this backdrop of racial tension that the 1968 Olympic Games were held in Mexico City. The world watched as athletes prepared to compete on the global stage. But for many black athletes, the Olympics were more than just a sporting event. They represented a platform to highlight the injustices they faced back home. They were determined to use their voices and their visibility to fight for change. The 1968 Olympics in Mexico City were filled with excitement. Athletes from around the world gathered to compete at the highest level. But the Games were also overshadowed by political and social unrest. For black athletes, it was a chance to prove themselves. They wanted to show they were just as talented and deserving. They planned to use their platform to make a statement about racial injustice. They knew the world was watching and were determined to be heard. On October 16, 1968, Tommie Smith and John Carlos lined up for the 200-meter race at the Mexico City Olympics. The tension was palpable. They weren't just running for themselves, they were running for something much bigger. They carried the hopes and struggles of their people on their shoulders. When the starting pistol fired, they ran like they had never run before. The finish line approached, and they pushed themselves to the limit. Tommie won the gold, and John took the bronze. They had done it. They had made it to the podium. But this was not the end. It was just the beginning. As the national anthem played, they bowed their heads, and each raised a black-gloved fist in the air. It was a symbol of black power, a silent protest against racism and oppression. In that moment, the world seemed to stand still. The stadium fell silent. They had made their statement, and it would reverberate for generations to come. Section 4. The backlash, punishment, and pride. The reaction to our protest was swift and brutal. We were booed by the crowd. The International Olympic Committee demanded our expulsion from the Games. We were stripped of our medals and sent home in disgrace. The media vilified us. We were called traitors and un-American. We received death threats. Our families were subjected to harassment and abuse. The price we paid for our actions was high, but we stood our ground. We knew we had done the right thing. We had used our platform to shine a light on injustice. We had given a voice to the voiceless, and no amount of backlash could take that away. The black community rallied around us. We became symbols of hope and resistance. Our actions inspired others to stand up and fight for what they believed in. We had shown the world that athletes could be more than just entertainers. They could be agents of change. Section 5. A legacy of activism, sports, and social justice. The 1968 Olympic protest was a watershed moment in sports and social justice. It showed athletes could use their platform to address social issues. Countless athletes have followed, advocating for social justice. From Muhammad Ali to Colin Kaepernick, athletes challenged the status quo. We must continue to raise our voices and demand equality for all. Section 6. Echoes of 1968. The fight continues. More than 5 decades have passed since that day in Mexico City. The world has changed in many ways, but the fight for racial justice continues. The echoes of our protest can be heard in the Black Lives Matter movement, in the fight for equal pay, and in the countless other struggles for equality and justice. Our actions in 1968 were not about hate, they were about love. Love for our people, love for our community, and love for our country. We wanted to live in a world where our children and grandchildren would not have to face the same racism and discrimination that we did. The fight for justice is never easy. It requires courage, sacrifice, and unwavering determination. But it is a fight worth fighting, for in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Let us continue to bend that arc together, until justice and equality are a reality for all.